Hello, my name is Ryan, and I am the host of this podcast. This is called Sox Content. Um, yeah, I I can't really tell you why I've decided all of a sudden to do this podcast, um, but yeah, we're making it. It's going to be about the Boston Red Sox. Just clarifying that now. If you are here in the market for some fruit of the loom socks, for some Hanes that are just the most comfortable ones you can ever have, maybe some compression socks for your grandmother, not the right podcast. This is about the Major League Baseball team, Boston Red Sox, and its affiliates and their journeys throughout the season. And yeah, we're gonna go ahead and kind of just get started in there. Um, I guess a little background on me first before we get started. Probably should talk about that since this is the first ever episode of this, and you don't know who I am. I'm some guy. I've been following the Red Sox here for 20 years now. Um, did not grow up in Boston. Didn't get the chance for that. My parents decided to birth me on the West Coast, so didn't get much of an option in that. And honestly, still live out here. Haven't 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 moved over to the East Side at all. But I've been to Boston a few times. And honestly, that's probably the biggest reason why I'm trying to do this thing, this podcast thing, is because I am tired of talking to myself about the Red Sox. I watch all the games that I possibly can. I'm listening to the games, watching the recaps, doing anything a good fan would do. But you know what I don't have? I don't have another fan nearby to talk with me about the Red Sox. And it's gotten to me over the years because it's just me out here. And now it's me and this microphone and the possible 5 or 6 other people that are deciding to listen to this on the other end. So appreciate you guys for joining me. We're gonna kind of figure out how this goes. I don't really know the format for how this is gonna be or anything, but we're gonna find that out together. And you know what? Maybe the content will get better over time. And you know what? It could have already peaked. This could be the peak right now. Could get dramatically worse over time, but we'll find out. I will preface this by saying I'm not a blogger, not a media consultant. I'm a guy, right? I work 50, 60 hours a week. Cannot tell you how often I'm be making this type of stuff. I would like to think that I could get an episode out a week, at least during the meat of the season. But I don't even know, man. I have no idea. We're gonna just kind of play it by ear, and hopefully you guys enjoy listening to me for whatever reason. So, without further ado, this is Sox content, and to preface this, I'm gonna go ahead and say right now, this is going to be an optimistic podcast. This is not going to be one of those guys. I don't understand how people can be fans of a team and just be like, man, my team freaking stinks, and they just shit on them every day, every chance they get. It's like, yeah, well, that's not me. That's not me. I'm gonna be real. I'm gonna be analytical. I'm gonna give you my opinion, obviously, on things. That's why I'm sitting here, is to do that, I suppose. But in reality here, I'm trying to be logical about this type of stuff, and I'm trying to give you guys a lot of fact-based substance that should help you guys feel good about the team and hopefully kill a few minutes of your time. Because yeah, I guess that's part of why we're here, I'm assuming. So anyway, let's jump into it. So we'll just jump into it. I'm recording this podcast. It is March 28th. This is 4:30 p.m. where I am. They haven't quite finalized the rosters for the 2023 season, but you know what? Opening day is 2 days away, and they've got most of them nailed down. So we're gonna kind of run through it, kind of feel how it is, and so we're gonna give a couple of our projections. We're gonna project. There's a lot of projection in this episode, and we're going to talk about those. So I guess first easiest way to kind of start off with this is what are my projections and expectations for the team as a whole? What do we think's going to happen by the end of the year? And you look at a lot of these guys from MLB.com and Fangraphs, ESPN, all the conglomerates, and they're kind of pegging the Red Sox for like an average type season. I feel like 78 to 82 wins is essentially what most people are getting at. And for me, I like to stray on the optimistic side a little bit more here. So what am I thinking is going to happen? Well, I think that the Red Sox, best case scenario, most likely scenario, I think they're going to win the World Series. Yeah, no, I said it. I think they're going to win the World Series. No. Okay, let me explain. I think they could win the World Series. I think there's a chance that they win the World Series this year. And I know you're probably sitting here like Ryan, like that doesn't make any sense. This team hasn't done enough. They haven't made the moves necessary. And I'll tell you right now, when you look at the lineup, we'll just look at the lineup 1 through 9 right now. Doesn't sound impressive, but there is upside up and down this lineup across the board. It's not like we're sitting here and we're having Jackie Bradley Jr., play 91 games for us again. He's not going to bat 210 all season for us with an OPS at 578. That's not happening. And I know a lot of guys love Jackie. I love Jackie too. I got some autographed baseballs of him. He's been very good to me as a fan. Great to the organization. He fucking sucked last year, guys. and I'll tell you right now, there were a lot of guys that did not perform to the expectations that were levied upon them. And you know what? This next year, I think that we're going to have a lot of guys that are just exceeding expectations. So let's go through this really quick. We're going to run through the lineup. We're going to run through some of the things that I've been expecting from the team and some of the things that I feel like potentially could happen. And so one of the things that I thought was interesting is when we first, the biggest acquisition of the offseason, right? Masataka Yoshida, Macho Man, hit a home run the other day. He popped that cherry. He doesn't have to worry about that. Already off his back. Absolutely nailed that thing 440 feet, crushed it. But we acquired him, and everybody was just assuming he's going to bat leadoff right away. And, I think Fangraphs, they have him looking at this. Zips is projecting him to win the batting title, which I think is a little aggressive for Masataka Yoshida. I think, can we be real here? They're projecting him to win the batting title, and he's never played a major league game. Now, he's great. I think he's going to be awesome, but that's a little aggressive. But what I do think is he is going to be an adequate replacement for Xander Bogaerts. And I know that's what a lot of people have been saying is like, oh, that's the hope that he can get there. And you know what? He might not produce the WAR numbers that are expected of that. He might not be that guy. He might not be that guy. But he's going to be one of them. He's going to be a good piece of this team. And I think that's a great start. But we're getting off track here. Yoshida's not batting leadoff. Yoshida's probably batting like 4th or 5th here. So let's take a look and see. We'll just take a look at the last spring training game real quick, and we're gonna see how the lineup's been scratching out. And I projected. I told you I'm not a blogger. I post on some forums and shit. This site called Reddit sometimes consumes me just a little bit. But I posted on there a while back on what I thought was going to be happening for him. And I thought Alex Verdugo was going to be batting leadoff. And you know what? Looks like he's going to be batting leadoff. And I think some people are not super pleased about this. I know Alex Verdugo was looking for an extension. He approached the Red Sox about an extension, and people were not quite sure how to feel about that. There were some mixed opinions. I personally think that Verdugo is one of just those foundational guys to a good winning ball club. And if he's batting leadoff this year, I'm not going to say he's like going to be the best leadoff hitter, but could he be like a top 10, top 15 type guy? Yeah. Yeah, no, he's totally got potential for that. And that's again, this is going to be a running theme for all of this. Verdugo has the potential to be an above average leadoff hitter. And that is what we have up and down the lineup. That's what we have across this roster. And if we hit on a lot of these guys, if we're able to hit on more of these guys than not, we're going to be in a spot where we're looking pretty good. So we got Alex Verdugo batting leadoff. I feel pretty okay about that. He batted 280 last year. That was where he was sitting. I think that is that's a good place for potentially where he could be. Now he's got that upside where I think he's gonna be close to like 290. I think he might have an 800 OPS this year. You know what? For me, he got called out a little bit by Alex Cora last year. He was sitting there, underperforming essentially from his expectations. And Alex Cora kind of knows when to kick people in the ass a little bit. And Verdugo's like, he pissed him off at the time, but he basically said this spring training, like, I needed that. I needed my ass to be kicked a little bit. That way I can perform the way that I'm expecting. And so Verdugo batting leadoff here, I think he could be close to a 300 hitter, maybe in that 290 range, but I think he's going to have like a power uptick. And I'm actually banking on him having an 800 OPS. And for Alex Verdugo, if he were to have an 800 OPS, that's a great position for us to be in. He's not going to be a big stolen base guy. He's not a huge on base percentage guy, but he is going to provide you that consistency that I was talking about. He's not going to give you terrible at bats on a day-to-day basis. And back in 2020, he was the best player on the Red Sox back in 2020. He batted 308 in that first season with the team, and that half a season showed some upside. And I think he's going to be closer to that 800 OPS guy, kind of that middle ground between 2020, 2021. And for me to be kind of saying that, I think that he's not only going to be batting a little bit higher this year, but he's going to be having that power stroke. And he's never had more than 13 home runs in a season. His career high in 2021 was 13. I think this is the year he hits 20. I think it's just the year, man. I think this is Verdugo's career year, and he's going to help be a catalyst to this team. He's such a positive force, positive personality within the team when he's going well. And just having that around this roster, I think is going to be a huge positive. And it's going to start off a lot of games right for us. So Alex Verdugo batting first, no problem with that. I think that's great. The next thing that I've been seeing is they're having Devers bat second. And that's where he sat a lot last year. He was batting second for basically the entire year. And, for me personally, I don't think that I would want Devers batting second. I know conventional wisdom states that you kind of want your best hitter batting second to maximize their at-bats, try to get some plate appearances early in the game with runners in scoring position. But I think I would rather have him bat third just due to the lefty-righty matchup here. What you're going to get from Devers. He's going to give you around that 900 OPS. Last year he was 879, gave you 27 home runs. Was hurt for part of the year, but I think he's definitely going to be a 30-plus home run bat consistently for this team. He's shown that. And so I would just rather see that, I think, in the number 3 spot and to try to separate him from Verdugo, 2 lefties back-to-back. I do think that lefties overall are going to benefit tremendously from the shift being eliminated. And so I know there are still some teams that are kind of working around that, but I don't think Verdugo is really a guy they're going to be targeting on that. I do think Devers might be a little bit, but either way, if you can split those guys up in the lineup, I would rather do that and have Devers batting third. And then you can move a guy like Justin Turner, who has been batting third, into that number 2 spot. And I feel like, he's not going to be, he's again one of those really solid guys. He's going to be replacing JD Martinez in this lineup, which honestly, he's probably going to give you a lot of what JD Martinez gave last year. Martinez is a loss for the organization, and he provided some of the best seasons that anybody has provided for this team. He absolutely fell apart in the second half last year, and I think that moving on from him is not a bad time to do it. He, from all accounts, there were some clubhouse issues with some of the veteran guys. I think a lot of that had to do with the contract with Xander Bogaerts, but I do also feel like that there were some potential issues with guys like Nathan Eovaldi and JD Martinez. And I think that, we're missing a lot of these veteran presences that took us to that last championship. But I think this is a good year for the roster to turn over. And it's a good year for us to possibly take that next step to winning the World Series this year. And so if you have Justin Turner, though, another guy, Justin Turner, Verdugo, Devers, you got three guys right at the start of the lineup, and they're all going to give you potentially 280 plus batting average. And that's really what it is, getting guys on base right now. You're not going to get a ton of power from Verdugo or Turner, but Devers is going to give you that for sure. And one of the things that we were definitely missing overall is the lack of power in the lineup, which if it were me, I would be having a guy like Duvall potentially batting fourth. And right now they're having Yoshida bat fourth. So they're having Verdugo, Devers, Turner, and Yoshida as the top four guys. I think Yoshida would be great. I would love, if he's ending the season batting fourth, starting the season batting fourth, I think that's great. I do think it puts a little bit of pressure on him. So I might have him more like a fifth type guy to start off. I probably would have him batting fifth to start off the year. Just to get that lefty-righty matchup. You can put Duvall in that four spot. It's a place that he's been before. He's been near the top of the lineup before. And Duvall's going to hit you, 30 home runs probably if he's healthy. But that's the key, is he going to be healthy? And if you got the health out of him, he's been pretty consistent over his career. And I think, as a right-handed batter in Fenway Park for Adam Duvall, I think his batting average is going to go up a bit. He's not really a big on-base percentage guy. He's mostly just a power threat, and he's not really shown a lot of average. But I think he could hit you like 240, 250 this year, and I'm not saying that's great. I'm not saying that Duvall's coming in here and replacing JD Martinez or something as that guy in the lineup that's going to hit you 300 and jack 40 schlongs over the wall. But he's going to get you some power in the lineup. He's going to get you a little bit of protection for Devers. And I think that if he can maintain that batting average just a little bit higher, having a guy like him behind Devers potentially could open up more possibilities for Rafael Devers, as opposed to, sending Duvall towards the bottom of the lineup if he's been struggling or whatever the reason may be. But yeah, I would put Duvall batting fourth. It looks like Yoshida's going to be batting fourth to start off the year. I don't really have a problem with that, other than the fact that you have three lefties in the top four spots. As long as you're facing a righty, that's not a big deal. Obviously, you're going to face a majority of righties. But I think just having the lefty-righty balance, you could just have a really solid lefty-righty balance throughout this entire lineup. And right now, I think he's playing a little bit of the analytics, Alex Cora. I think he's pushing some of the better players to the top of the lineup, and I can respect that 100%. I mean, if it works out, that's awesome. But you can also do the lefty-righty balance and still make it happen. So Yoshida, I feel really good about Yoshida. I don't think he's going to hit 305 this year necessarily, but I do think he's going to show you more power than you think. I do think that he's going to give you a lot of doubles. And, he might only bat like 280, but if I was to bet today, Yoshida's the rookie of the year, right? Like, I mean, there's nobody who has a track record better than him. You got really good guys. Volpe made the opening day roster for the Yankees, which I think, he could do awesome things. He's a great player, but fuck him. But anyway, Yoshida, though, honestly, I think it'd be a lot of fun if Yoshida and Volpe at the end of the year were battling for that Rookie of the Year spot. But I think that Yoshida has the inside edge. He's just got the track record. I mean, he's been an MVP before, batting crown multiple times over in Japan. He's just that guy, man. He's been a guy for his whole career. Now he's coming to the major leagues. He wants to be that guy. And he showed a lot. I mean, during the World Baseball Classic, if Ohtani didn't exist, guys, I mean, Yoshida's probably the MVP for Japan. I mean, he didn't really show up in that championship game, but the guy was batting straight up 500 for like 7-8 games during the World Baseball Classic. He hit that huge game-tying 3-run home run in the semifinal game. I mean, he's clutch as hell, and he's absolutely jacking balls over the fence. And, I think that the average might be a little bit more difficult with him, getting that a little higher in his first season, just because of all the quality pitching that you're going to have across the league. But the power and the doubles, I think that's going to be there, because when he gets a hold of one, it shows. I mean, he knows what he's doing as a professional hitter. So Yoshida, we've gone through five or six guys now. Across the board, though, we're looking pretty good. We're looking pretty good. And who's your next guy up after this? After Verdugo, Devers, Turner, Yoshida, Duvall, you got Tristan Casas, and this is where you should be batting. I mean, if you're having Tristan Casas and you don't need to have him work, and he's batting 5th or 6th in your lineup, and you're giving him the reins. Bobby Dahlbeck, go fuck yourself. You're in AAA. It's basically what they told him. I appreciate some of the things that Bobby Dahlbeck has done, but we should have traded Dahlbeck 2 years ago when he was really stepping up, and he had a good second half. We should have traded him then, because you could see the signs back then. This guy is just not going to be that consistent player, and he wasn't. He was just absolute shit last year. I don't think that any of us can say with a straight face that we enjoyed any moments with Bobby Dahlbeck last year for more than a fleeting home run here and there. He's I don't know if he's going to make it. I just don't. He's in AAA, but this is not about Bobby Dahlbeck. This is about Tristan Casas. And Tristan Casas, in that short time that he was here last season, he batted under 200 for the couple weeks that he was up last year. And I swear, the Red Sox nation as a whole was about to collectively cream their pants just at the thought of Casas coming up and hitting a couple homers at the end of the year, just after having to deal with Dahlbeck all season. But in reality, he had like a 113 OPS plus in that limited sample size, and that's still with him batting under 200. Casas isn't going to be a big average guy, but the dude can get on base for sure. He's probably going to get on base close to a 9-10% clip, which that's pretty good. Like, just from a walk, just 9-10% walk rate is what I mean by that. And he's got the power, man. Like, he's still growing into his body, but he's developed a lot. He's a pretty big boy. Lefty bat. He's gonna be peppering that bullpen for sure. And honestly, it seems like they've committed to Casas. I wasn't 100% sure with this. I thought that Bobby Dahlbeck was going to be making the roster, and with him being cut, they've given the position to Casas. There's no platoon at the beginning of the season. It is Casas's to lose, and I think that confidence being given to this kid after having a pretty successful end of the last year trial run is just going to propel him to another level. I know I talked about Yoshida possibly being Rookie of the Year this year, but Casas is not a guy to forget about either. I'm not sure if he's going to have the WAR numbers, but I think we're going to sit here at the end of the year, and he's going to be on the opening day roster this year, and I would be shocked if he had less than 25 homers by the end of this year. That's a pretty big number. That is a pretty big number for a rookie to hit. And you know what? If we look back and we were talking 30 plus, close to 35 home runs by the end of this year, wouldn't shock me at all. Do I think it's going to happen? Nah, not in his first year. But do I think he's going to hit like 250 with 25 homers? Yeah. And that is a solid as shit number 5, number 6 hitter in your lineup. Like, if you can get somebody like that and just have a little bit more depth, I mean, that brings power to the middle of the lineup. It brings a good walk rate to the middle of the lineup. You can get a guy with just like an 800 OPS in that slot. That's great. And you know what? It means that the guys that are a little bit closer to that bottom of the lineup, they're going to be easier to hide. And if they perform at the level that they have the potential to, that's where we're starting to talk, man. That's where we're starting to talk. I mean, we just talked about, we got 6 guys into this lineup now. We're 6 guys in. And every single one of them has the potential to be close to an all-star level. You're telling me Verdugo can't be an all-star? He has all of that potential in him. Justin Turner has been an all-star. Devers has been an all-star. Duvall, World Series champion. Casas potentially could be an all-star level at some point, maybe not this year, but has that in him. Yoshida, I mean, people are talking about him as like the Rookie of the Year favorite right now. So you're telling me he's not an all-star? That is 6 guys at the start of the lineup that if they reach, the 75th percentile for what they could be projected for, that's close to an all-star level. And we're 6 guys in right now. We haven't even gotten to the bottom here. And who's batting 7th? Who are we sitting here? We've got Christian Arroyo. And he's not Trevor Story. Let's be real. He's not going to replace that bat in the lineup. And anybody here who's going to slander Trevor Story and say that we overpaid for him, you are wrong. That's basically it. I was going to go a little harsher than that, but I don't believe that that's the case. I think that people have that mindset because they were going to make him a shortstop, which is insane to me that they could look at his arm strength numbers and be like, yeah, this guy could be a shortstop for another 6 years. Yeah, his arm is noodles. Maybe he'll come back from this shoulder surgery and have a little bit more arm strength in there and can provide some of that. But honestly, do you really want noodle arm over here at shortstop? Probably not. It would definitely be better if he's just sitting at second base. But even still, put him at second base. He is going to be an offensive force. In the month of May last year, he absolutely sucked ass in April of his first season with the Red Sox, 2022. Absolutely terrible. But you know what? He came back and he hit like 7 home runs in 10 games in May. He had a stretch where he just absolutely killed it. He literally just he fucked the Mariners in the ass, basically. I think he hit 3 home runs in one of their games, and then he hit a 4th home run that was a grand slam like the next day. He does not like the Mariners, and you know what? I'm fine with that. I wish we played the Mariners more. But what I'm trying to get at, we're not talking about Trevor Story here. We're talking about Christian Arroyo. Christian Arroyo, when Trevor Story was down, dude, Christian Arroyo balled out for us. So like take a look at some of these stats, like just for the end of the year here. Christian Arroyo. Oh God, I don't have it pulled up in front of me. Christian Arroyo batted 286 last year. 103 OPS doesn't sound great. 736 OPS plus doesn't sound all that great. But what I'm most interested in is his splits. And he has always been one of those guys that just has never been able to stay healthy. This guy was a first-round draft pick. I know a lot of the guys that are in the big leagues were first-round draft picks, but he was like the top prospect for the San Francisco Giants when he was drafted in 2013. And he really just hasn't been able to kind of put this shit together. He just has not been able to do it. But he went on a stretch. There at the end of the season where he just absolutely balled out. So look at this. We're talking in the month of August. He batted 326. In 7 games in July, he batted 458. And in September, October, at the end of the year, he batted 288. So you put that all together, and at the end of this season here, he's batting like 330 and just tearing the cover off the ball to finish the year. Had like a 900 OPS. Now, a lot of that's from doubles. He's never really going to be a guy that I think is going to hit a home run at a high rate, but you know what? Do I think he could be a guy that hits like 12 or 15 home runs? Yeah, he possibly could. And you know what? The job's his, man. Like nobody else is coming for it. Trevor Story, like when he comes back, yeah, he's going to have a spot in this lineup. And it's unsure of when he's going to be back, though. I mean, is he going to be back in late August, September, possibly? You know, he might be back in October when this team is winning the World Series, but there's also a chance though that he doesn't make the team this year. And so if that's the case, I mean, this is Christian Arroyo's time, man. It's always been about health and opportunity for this guy. I've been saying it for so long, and he finally has health and opportunity. So I would not be surprised. You look at this guy, he spent 2 months last year at the end of the season hitting like 330 like an 850, 900 OPS to end the season. Is he that guy? No, that would definitely be extremely impressive if he batted 330 for a whole season. That'd be shockingly impressive. Do I think he's a guy that could bat like 290? You know, provide a little bit of pop, maybe play 120, 130 games. Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think this guy could be one of those guys. And if you have Christian Arroyo, after I just listed off all of these guys, you have Christian Arroyo batting seventh or something in your lineup, regularly batting seventh, and he's hitting like 290, 280, 290. You feel pretty good about that, right? Like we're talking up and down this lineup. We're having quality pieces. And the last two spots in the lineup, even still, like the only spot in the lineup that I actually feel any worry for is where I would have like Kike Hernandez, who's batting probably eighth or ninth at the end of this year. And honestly, thank the Lord that we are done with the Kike Hernandez batting leadoff experiment. Like we tried this for a couple seasons, and I know Kike was like begging to bat leadoff. And I remember watching it, and Alex Cora was like, we're going to give him the opportunity because, you know, we fucking suck this year. And so he can do whatever he wants because he's really loud and he might do well. And he didn't. He really, really just didn't do well. But I love Kike. I love the energy he brings to this team. He's a leader in the clubhouse. I think he's going to be better this year. It'd be very difficult to be worse. He batted 222 last season with a 629 OPS. That's pretty freaking horrendous. Pretty shit. But do I think he's going to be a guy that's really going to be a catalyst for this team? No. And if we end the season, if we're in the last week of the season and you say Kike Hernandez batting leadoff, batting second in this lineup, this team, something's gone terribly wrong with this team. Absolutely terribly wrong. Or Kike Hernandez just lost his mind and decided to actually be a really good player. But I don't know if he's going to do it, man. I can't see him staying healthy. I like his versatility a lot. I'd be fine with him being like an everyday center fielder type guy. I'm a little concerned with him at shortstop, but I do know this is the position he's always wanted to play, and he seems genuinely excited and committed to this position. So while I do have optimism for Kike Hernandez, I think he's going to be better than last year. That's the one spot in the lineup that I'd be concerned about. That's the one spot where you potentially could be looking at an upgrade down the road. And, you know, some of the bench guys that are going to be available, they might take a spot. I mean, we'll talk about that in a second, but like, I think Kike Hernandez, his position on this team is a lot more in flux than he might realize. I'm not sure if that's been clear with him, or I'm hoping it's a little bit more in flux, because honestly, his position flexibility makes him ideal for like a multi-purpose bench player. But if he's just not going to be able to bat the way that he needs to, I would much rather him be on the bench, regardless of how much money he's making. So Kike, that's one of the few spots that I'm a little concerned about. And then the last spot in the lineup is our catcher spot. So we got Connor Wong and Reese McGuire. McGuire is going to be the opening day guy most likely. McGuire is one of those sneaky guys. Like, I mean, if you guys have been kind of paying attention to Reese McGuire at all, you might have heard some stuff, some gratification that Reese McGuire decided to take part in some parking lot. But outside of that, and I'll try not to make that joke very much in the future, but Reese McGuire kind of balled out for us, honestly, at the end of last year. Last year's team, oh my God, they were hard to watch, man. It did not feel like a 78 win team at the end of last season. That did not. This was like a 60 win team dressed up for 78 wins. But Reese McGuire, like after we acquired him, kind of balled out a little bit. Guy in 108 plate appearances, batted .337. He had a .500 slugging percentage, good for an .877 OPS. That's crazy. 142 OPS plus. I know that's 100 at-bats, but at the same time, we're not talking 30 at-bats here. 100 at-bats is a reasonable sample size when we're talking about a guy. You know, it's not a lot, but it's something to take note of. And it's something to keep in mind as we approach this next season. Because if Reese McGuire is a guy, and is he going to bat 337 for the whole year? No. Again, same thing as Arroyo. If he bats 337 for the whole year, like, I mean, what are we talking? That's an all-star. That's definitely all-star. Batting champion from Reese McGuire. That would be insane. But, I mean, is he going to be a guy that could bat like 280 for you? 270, 280? Yeah. And, I mean, his career batting average right now, we'll just look at this. Just his 5-year career. Got about 674 play appearances. That's what it says here. 256 batting average. That's not bad. I mean, he doesn't have a ton of power generally. Got some doubles opportunities. He did hit 3 home runs for the Red Sox last year. I mean, extrapolate that a little bit out. Maybe he can hit you 10 home runs in a year. But I would be pretty happy if we had like a catcher that was batting, 250, 270 in that range. And I think that he's definitely going to be batting at least his career norm. And I think that, again, he's one of those guys. He just has upside. I mean, if he does even a little bit less than what he did at the end of last year and gives you around, say he performs even better than I think, gets you like a 280 batting average, 290 batting average, that's pushing all-star level from a catcher position from a pretty decent defensive catcher as well. And so, honestly, I feel pretty good about Reese McGuire. Connor Wong, it's hard to say. I like Connor Wong actually quite a bit. I don't really think he's going to be a huge factor for this team, but I think he could be a very solid backup to Reese McGuire, a platoon type situation. After Reese McGuire, man, the depth is pretty bad. So I'm really hoping that he can kind of take that step up. This is his time, man. He's got that backup job locked up, and I've been hyping up Reese McGuire here. It's possible Connor Wong could take that next step if Reese McGuire falls back a little bit, and then we have Connor Wong in the starting role by the end of this year. There's a world where that happens too. There's a lot of fluctuation that's happening with this team this year, and so we've gone through our 1 through 9 here, 1 through 9, and I'm going to tell you right now, I'm comparing the 2022 and 2023 lineup, and there were 5 guys on this team that had like an OPS of under 730, 5 regular guys, regular everyday guys. We had 3 guys in the lineup that had a batting average under 230. That was like for the entire year. Hernandez, 222. We had Trevor Story at 238, Dahlbeck at 215, Jackie Bradley Jr. at 210. These aren't even, Kike Hernandez batting leadoff, batting 222. I mean, you got Trevor Story batting 6th, batting 238, followed by Dahlbeck batting 7th at 215. Like, these are some bad batting averages, and you got them batting all back to back. And I honestly think this is why last year just sucked. Like we came off a 2021 season where we were just a couple wins away from a World Series, and honestly, I was as shocked as anyone. I was like, shit, are we gonna make the World Series? And like, it was like, oh damn, like we got a shot here. And then the Astros did the Astros shit, and they went on. But I think it showed a lot of potential, obviously. And we just took that step back because I think we were a step ahead. We were too far ahead for our own good in 2021. And when we just look at 2022, last season as a whole, it was just like an amalgamation of injuries and just underperforming players. And I think that's what made it really hard to watch, is because not only did we expect more, obviously we weren't expecting to be in last place again. It's like we only have one option here, to be in last place or win the World Series. But yeah, I mean, that's what made it so hard to watch last year. It's just like you have the last 3 guys in the lineup, essentially, that you're getting absolutely nothing from them. And so if your first 6 guys, your first 5 or 6 guys in the lineup aren't giving you much that game, you're facing a tough pitcher, you just know you got 3 innings a game where the 7, 8, 9 guys are coming up and they aren't doing shit. Like, you get a walk in and it's like, whew, nice. We're getting to Kike Hernandez, who's going to strike out on 4 pitches. Like, Like it's not great. It's not great when your leadoff guy sucks and then your last three guys in the lineup also suck. And so really like last season, when you look at it on paper, you look at 78 wins, and it's like, the team on paper didn't do as bad as everybody talks about it. But it's like, it felt like going to Applebee's, right? And, Applebee's is fine. It's fine. I mean, if you like going to Applebee's, good on you. But honestly, Applebee's kind of a shit. But sometimes you go to Applebee's, right? And it's a restaurant chain. Like sometimes the chef's okay, and it's like okay, this food's not too bad today. It's fresh. The waitress was nice. I had a good experience at Applebee's. My shrimp, not bad today. Pretty good. They have the special. You get the special. You get your wings. They come out to you. They're half price. And it's like, dang. And so sometimes you have teams like that where it's like, yeah, this team was like a 78 win team, but I felt good about going there. Like I enjoyed going to Applebee's this season. Like that wasn't bad. Like it wasn't bad. But sometimes you go to Applebee's and it's like, fuck. Like the waitress is not paying attention to me. I haven't gotten a refill. I forgot. My ID's expired. So they made me move out from the bar. I'm not even trying to buy liquor, but they picked up my plate and they took me out of the bar because the waitress had to check. And it's like, oh shit, that's inconvenient, kind of embarrassing. And then you get your food and it's just cold, and it's like, fuck, this is exactly what I thought was gonna happen from Applebee's. And you know what? It's kind of shit. And it's just like, and then on the way out, they just shoot your girlfriend in the face. They just cold-blooded murder just right there. And it's like, wow, damn, now I have to deal with the murder of my girlfriend. And you know what? You still went to Applebee's. You still went there, and you know what? Sometimes you get fresh food and good shrimp and great service, and other times they shoot your girlfriend in the fucking face. And that was the 78 win Red Sox last season. That's how it was. Shit, sometimes you go to McDonald's, like you go to McDonald's, even it's a shit restaurant. You're a 65 win team, but it's like, you got some cool parts. This team, like you got some good prospects and stuff going up, and I'd rather even be a part of that. You give me a shitty 65 win team, but it's kind of fun towards the end of the season. I'd like that. You give me a shitty 78 win team that is just miserable to watch. And I'm not feeling great about that. I'd rather lose another 10 games and get a better draft pick than have to deal with that boring ass season and something that's not even watchable. And I think that's like the most important thing that I'm trying to get at here. This next season, at minimum, are they going to win the World Series? Yes, they're going to win the World Series, but they're also going to be watchable. They're going to be watchable. Up and down the lineup, at least you're going to get an offensive production. And last year, the Red Sox last season, I just shat all over the 2022 Red Sox when it comes to their lineup. They fucking murdered my girlfriend 3 minutes ago. But you know what? They were a top 10 offense in baseball last year. Can you believe that? They were third in team batting average, sixth in on base percentage, ninth in slugging, ninth in on base percentage plus slugging. And this is a team, I listed off just a minute ago, there are like 5 guys in this lineup batting 230 or less. And essentially this was carried by Rafael Devers, Xander Bogaerts. They really boosted the lineup overall. But even still, I mean, 2 guys don't make a team. So there were still some people in the lineup that were producing. Verdugo did okay. You had good season from Christian Vasquez. It was a loss to not get him back, but I get it. He's too expensive. But if they were a top 10 offense last year when we were just eating shit and getting our loved ones killed, this year when we have that up and down lineup where we're going to be seeing, solid to potentially above average production from almost every spot in the lineup from what you're expecting. I'm not saying that we're going to have above average hitters batting 9th in the lineup, but above average for a number 9 hitter, yeah, absolutely. I think that we're going to have an above average hitter almost across the board for whatever spot in the lineup that we have. and that's going to make it fun. That's going to make it enjoyable. And so even if you extrapolate this down, so we went through the lineup. I feel good about the lineup. Let's talk about the bench real quick. The bench is not bad. Like, we got Alberto Mondesi. I'm pretty sure he's going to be pretty good. I've actually read some people talking about this guy, and they're saying that there's some power in there. And I don't think that that's something that I'm really super jazzed about. Like, I'm not expecting Alberto Mondesi to come up and, hit us 20 home runs in half a season. But, you look back when he was 22 in 2018, he hit 14 home runs in half a season. You extrapolate that out to a full season, it's easily over 25 home runs. I don't think he's really that guy. He's been consistently hurt, underperformed. But what he is he's going to steal you a shit ton of bases. And with the new base running rules this year, oh man, if we can get this guy into the lineup, I'm not feeling great about Kike Hernandez, but Alberto Mondesi, if you get this guy and he's batting 230, 240 at the bottom of your lineup, maybe he doesn't even have to have an on-base percentage that high, but if you can get them in there and have him on base, once a game, going 1 for 4 or something like that, maybe 1 for 4, 1 for 5 a game. He's probably stealing you some bases and getting you into scoring position, and that's a valuable asset to have on the team. And even from a bench role, if he's not in the starting lineup, I'm not trying to kick Kike out of his spot already, but he's going to come in, and honestly, this guy could have under 200 at-bats this year and have 30 stolen bases. That's kind of how I feel about it, how the system's going to be running this year. I think that the stolen bases is something that people are not talking about enough. The pitch clock is obviously the spring training focus right now because, we're not really focusing on counting stats too much. But I think you're going to have guys like Trey Turner and Mookie Betts and some of the faster guys that are in the league, Luis Robert. Like, you're gonna have some guys taken off this season, and we're gonna actually be pretty shocked to see how much higher the stolen bases go up. It would not surprise me if league-wide stolen bases were up 30-40%, and I think it's just going to be great for the game. But getting back to Alberto Mondesi, I think that he's going to be just a great player for this team. As long as he can come up and hit a little bit, it's going to provide something that we haven't had on this team essentially since Mookie Betts left. Like, we haven't had any stolen base threats. And so just getting that back in the lineup, providing a little bit more versatility, is going to be great. So we got Mondesi. He's going to be on the DL to start off, but we got Rob Refsnyder next. He was, I don't know about you guys, but you look at Rob Refsnyder, this guy might have been my favorite storyline of the 2022 season. This guy, every single time he came up, he just looked like he was having a good ass time. And you know what? I like Rob Refsnyder. I think that when he got that little extension that he was able to sign for this season, I was excited to keep him. I think he's going to be an asset to this team. I know he hasn't performed consistently, but in 150 at-bats last year, he hit a 307 and had an 881 OPS. And honestly, I feel like some of that, I don't think he's going to be quite that good, but I do feel like he's taken that next step. I think he took 2 steps last season. He might take a step back, a half a step back. But if we're still getting a guy, he's batting 270, 280 off the bench, we'll take a walk, have a little bit of power in there, maybe a little clutch gene that we saw last year. That's pretty studly, and I'd love to see that from him. I think he's going to be really, really good for us, and I'm excited to see what happens. Bobby Dahlbeck is at AAA. Talked about him earlier. I can't, unless Cassis just doesn't have it. I don't know if Bobby Dahlbeck's really making it back up this year unless there's injuries happening. I know they were stretching him out at shortstop. He can play first base and third base now. It's honestly, it was a meme putting him at shortstop, and I'm not sure if Alex Cora realizes that when they put him there before, we weren't being serious. It was almost like yeah, Bobby Dahlbeck's at shortstop, and they were like, yeah, he is. So I'm pretty surprised that he's being stretched out there. But I mean, shoot, I mean, if he can be okay at shortstop, maybe it helps him a little bit more. Maybe he can turn things around this year. But I'm low on Dahlbeck. I think a lot of people are low on him. But just overall, he's got a lot that he's got to figure out. So um, Connor Wong is going to be great. Fish, goodish. He's going to be solid. Jaron Duran on the bench. He's going to be in AAA. Start off the year. Raimel Tapia made the roster, which I think Tapia is going to be okay. I think that there's a little bit. I think Tapia is honestly one of those guys that might come in, start off kind of strong, but really, like, Raimel Tapia has never really been anybody good. He's kind of just been one of those guys, you know. I mean, he's got 1,700 at bats in the big leagues, and he's got a .8 career WAR, .8, and so I'm glad he made the roster. It's nothing. I don't have anything bad to say about the guy. You know, his batting average has been pretty consistently high. He's just kind of a below average player. That's just really what it is. Maybe he's still 29. He's still decently fast, and you know what? Maybe he will be one of those type of guys that capitalizes on the stolen base rules and kind of takes advantage of it, because you know he's got some wheels. He's still 20 bases a couple years back. So, but I don't think he's on the roster by the end of the season. I just don't. I think Duran comes up and takes that spot, and I know Duran. A lot of people put the Dahlbeck with Duran. I don't think that that's the case. I think that Duran's in kind of a different bucket on his own. He's had some issues, man. Speaking of Tapia, that grand slam last year was just, woo. Man, if I was doing a live podcast or something, that would have been something. But yeah, no. I think he's got more potential, more opportunity in there. There's even some scouts that have talked about him before and been like, this is like one of the best prospects we've ever seen, period. And so just kind of hearing about some of this stuff, he feels less of like a pigeonhole player, and he feels like he could get some above average tools. I mean, maybe builds up that defense a little bit better. He's not a slow player by any means. So again, stolen base rules, maybe he can increase his base running. And as a batter, I mean, he's shown some flashes in the pan where he'll go off on a couple game stretch, and it's like, okay, that's pretty damn good, Bobby, or that's pretty good, Jaron. But I think he's going to be on the roster by the end of the season. I think that he's going to have a good chunk of the season at AAA, but I think he's going to be back, and I think he's going to help us. Probably the most interesting guy that I'm really thinking about on this team is Emmanuel Valdez. He's one of the guys that we picked up from the Christian Vasquez trade. He was basically the guy that we picked up. I don't think it was a 1-for-1 trade, but yeah, Emmanuel Valdez, he's going to be up this year at some point or another. Prospect with the team, did pretty good in the regular season. I kind of view him in the same sense of like a Franchy Cordero type project, and I don't mean that as an insult. I fucking love Franchy, and honestly, I'm looking at Franchy Cordero this season. I think he's gonna hit like 25 home runs, 30 home runs. I think he's one of those type of guys that could develop and have a couple really strong seasons like that. Maybe not necessarily like the average type guy, but I think his power so strong that it's just ridiculous. And Emmanuel Valdez, he's a short guy, short king. But overall, like, I think that, you know, he's got some power behind him. He hit 28 home runs last year in the minors, which that's quite a bit. I think it was through AA and AAA. So I'm just really interested to see. He plays first base, second base, third base, right field, and left field. And so I think that if there's an injury, he's going to be one of those first type of guys up if he's performing at all well. So interesting to see. Very interesting to see that guy. And so with the lineup in mind, these are going to be basically the guys that you're going to see throughout this year. Some of these guys aren't on the active roster to start off. Yu Chang made the roster too. I don't know how I feel about Yu Chang. I think he could be okay. I think he kind of got a roster spot for what he did in the World Baseball Classic. Not feeling super great about Yu Chang. I think that we're looking more like in the Emmanuel Valdez category towards the second half of this season. But Yu Chang's going to get opportunities, and he's not going to get DFA'd before May or June or anything. But he doesn't have a whole lot of time to prove himself for sure, because he hasn't shown a ton at the big league level. But if he does, I mean, he could stick around for sure. But outside of all those guys, we're going to get Trevor Story potentially back towards the end of this year, and it could almost be like a trade deadline acquisition. And I mean, if he comes up and he's a power threat guy. He's still like a 25-30 home run bat when he's healthy. I mean, he was going to have a 4 WAR last season prior to injuries when he was healthy. So I think that there's a lot of potential when it comes to like a Story return if the Red Sox are in that hunt to win the World Series. So really overall, I think the catalyst for the lineup though is going to come to Rafael Devers, Duvall, and Casas. Like if they can give us some power in the lineup, like if you can get those 3 going, and you got Masataka Yoshida, you got Verdugo going up there doing their thing. I just think across the board, like if you get these guys and you can get some of them to be as expected, like, and then you get 3 or 4 of them, 3 or 4 in the lineup to have above expectation seasons. We're going to go from, okay, we have a really solid lineup to we have a really good lineup very quickly. And so interesting to see how that develops. That's the lineup. So for pitchers, this is the part that I am. This is the part that's going to decide if we win the World Series. I'm not worried about the lineup. We're going to have a top 10 lineup this year. I genuinely think that without question. I think we're going to be probably in that 7 to 9, 7 to 10 type range for a lineup. I think that people aren't talking about it enough, but the Red Sox are going to be pretty good offensively. Their pitching, on the other hand, that's the scary part. It's all contingent on Chris Sale. And that is the reason that this Red Sox team the past 2 years has struggled and failed in a lot of ways. It's because they're expecting Chris Sale to be their number 1 starter. And I think at this point, you cannot expect anything out of Chris Sale. I think most people, if you were to say Chris Sale is going to throw 120 innings this year, people are going to be lining up for that. 120 innings, you're going to get me 20 starts out of Chris Sale? Like, shoot, I'll take that. 18, 20 starts. Yeah, we'll do that. And honestly, I think he's going to do more than that. I really just do. Every injury that he's had has been like just some bullshit injury since his Tommy John surgery. And really, the first year after Tommy John surgery is always the struggle. He sat out basically that whole season. He pitched like 3-4 innings and then was just out because he broke his finger immediately and just horribly on the mound. And so all these injuries, like he's got so much time for his arm to heal. He's throwing 95, 96. I think he's peaked out. In spring training, he's throwing like 96. And that's just going to develop a little bit further. I think he's going to be touching 97, 98 this year. And if that's where he's at, that's all he needs. He doesn't need to be higher, man. Like, if he's throwing 94 average fastball, 93 average fastball, I mean his slider's deadly. Like he's gonna put up some numbers. And is he gonna be that under 3 ERA type guy? No, maybe not. I mean, he could be. But could he give you like a 3.5 or less? Oh, dude, if he's above 3.5, he got hurt. Like I don't see a world where he can't be under 3.5. And so really it's just about, is he going to be healthy all year? And at this point in time, his arm, his shoulder, everything about his throwing mechanics is healthy. And so I think Chris Sale's going to go out there and throw like 160. I think he's going to be like 160, 170 innings. I think he's going to shock some people and be like, I didn't think he was going to have this health in him. And unless he gets some sort of nagging injury or some, bullshit baseball that's going to break his fucking ankle or something, I think he's going out there and he's going to give you 28 starts or something like that. I think you're going to get 160 plus innings out of Chris Sale. And if we get 160 innings out of Chris Sale, it sets everything else in motion, because then you got guys like Corey Kluber, who he's your number one starter to start off the year, but he's in reality not your number one starter. With any luck, by the end of the year, Corey Kluber is our number 3 or number 4 starter. And I think that there's a possibility for that too, because Kluber, I think he's going to be a 4 ERA type guy this year. He's past his prime by far. I mean, he can still go out there and shove, don't get me wrong. He's going to have some good performances. I remember the Red Sox faced him last year, and I was just pissed off the whole game because I'm like, oh, we're going to shell Corey Kluber. And then, the team just freaking stank the entire second half of the year, which didn't help that game. But I would say that Corey Kluber, if he's giving you 140, 150 innings, I think he's going to give you less innings than Chris Sale, 100%. If he's giving you something in that range, gives you a nice 4 ERA, and we can slide him in to that number 3, starting rotation spot, number 3, number 4 would be ideal. That's awesome. I would love to be able to be like, Corey Kluber, we can't have you start game 3 of the playoffs. We've got a better guy. And right now he's starting game 2 if the playoffs started today. And that's scary when you have Corey Kluber as your number 2 starter. Now, can you win with that? Sure. I mean, Corey Kluber could do better. He could come up and be like, maybe he has one of those bounce back type seasons. Some of these older guys, the really good pitchers, they will have those seasons kind of out of nowhere towards the twilight of their career where, they're sitting a little bit higher in ERA, and then they'll just have one of those years where it's like, yeah, I remember how to pitch. I can make the adjustments with my lower velocity. And you know what? Like Adam Wainwright's a great option or great comparison to this. He just goes out there and shoves throwing 82 miles an hour. But if he does that, great. But I'm just thinking that he's more likely to be like the number 4 starter type guy for a good team. And so then after that, who I think is going to be the number 2 starter by the end of the year. And honestly, it's going to sound kind of crazy, but I know people have been talking about this otherwise, so I'm not the only one. I think Brian Bayo, by the end of this season, as long as he's, joining the roster early here in April, I don't know if he's going to make opening day. It doesn't sound like it. I think he's going to start the season on the disabled list. As long as he's doing that, I think that he could be a dark horse Cy Young candidate. Like I know that that's kind of a hot take, and I wouldn't even. I'm saying it publicly here, but I wouldn't say that if you guys knew what my face looked like. But but I do think that he's got that. I think he could be an all-star this year, honestly. He's just got nasty stuff. He's the first real pitcher the Red Sox have developed in a long time. I think he's going to be better than Clay Buchholz. And Buchholz had some peak years, guys. And so, but his overall body of work, I think he has the potential to be better than Clay Buchholz. And he's going to be some guy kind of in that range of like a John Lester type fellow. No, not like longevity wise, but I think he has the potential to kind of have some years, some peak years, like John Lester. And John Lester was like a number 1 starter that would fucking shove for you guys. I mean, we had him going through playoff series, and when he was pitching, we're thinking he's going to win. Like we're shocked when he loses a game in the playoffs. And I think that that's the type of guy that Brian Bayo is going to be. And I think that he could be that as early as this year. So if we're talking Sale at number 1, and then I honestly, I don't even think it's a hot take to say Chris Sale is going to be our number 1 with a lot of innings this year. When you really think about it, and you think about his injuries, and you think about what he's coming back from, and the health of his body in terms of his pitching mechanics, I don't think that's very very hot take whatsoever suggesting that he's going to pitch that many innings. So we got him at number 1. We got Bayo at number 2. And then honestly, I would love to see Tanner Houck at number 3. 10 runs a game Tanner is spring training ERA is like 9.6. Obviously it's not going to cut it, but Houck is like, he's shown us, he's honestly been nothing but great since he's been with the team. He hasn't been very good as a starter overall, and I think this will be a learning curve for him, but I think he's going to be one of those guys kind of similar to Corey Kluber, just in a different way, more of like learning how to pitch. And he's going to end up with around like a 4 ERA this year. And people are going to be like, oh, he kind of took a step backwards. Like, well, no, he's learning how to be a starter in the big leagues. And so if he ends, we'll say like a 3.8, 4.2 ERA, I would say that's not a terrible season for him. And honestly, we had like Eovaldi starting games, and he would just fuck you in the ass when he had numbers like that in the postseason, because he could just take that next level. And I feel like Tanner Houck, he's got that mindset on the mound where he's like that Tiger King type mindset. Like he's the alpha. He's got that Chris Sale, like not just throwing mechanics from the right-handed side, but he's just got like that type of bravado when he's on the mound where it's just like, I ruled this kingdom. And his body of work throughout the season, I don't feel like is going to be there all the way. But I do think that if it comes postseason time and there's some potential for him to pitch in some postseason games, I think that he's going to be pretty good. So just throwing that out there. Number 5 starters. We got Paxton. We got Whitlock. We got Pivetta. We got Crawford. I feel good about that. I feel really good. Honestly, James Paxton, I have zero expectations for James Paxton. James Paxton could come in and give us 100 innings of solid pitching this year. And I know he's given nobody any innings over the past like 3 or 4 years, but along the same vein as Chris Sale, I think it's possible that he could do 100 innings this year. If I were to really actually guess, 100 innings is like peak. And if I were to really guess, I would say Paxton's head is going to explode sometime in May, and we're never going to see him again. But I root for the guy. I want him to do well. He's performed really well when he's been around, but this is basically, I don't know if he's going to get much more opportunity than this if he just can't stay healthy. So I'm rooting for him. I'm glad he's not our primary number 5 starter. I'm glad we have other guys we can kind of count on. If Nick Pivetta is our number 5 starter by the end of the season, he was like our best pitcher for long stretches last year. But I would feel pretty good about that. I think Nick Pivetta also kind of has that range where he could excel. He's definitely got some stuff that outplays his numbers at times. But at the same time, he hasn't put it all together the way that he needs to consistently outside of that one stretch. And so I'm not sure there. Cutter Crawford, he's kind of a AAA guy. I know he's starting the season in the rotation. I'm hoping he doesn't get more than a couple starts and we can kind of ship him back down there and be an up and down guy throughout the season for a spot start or two. I think he could be a decent number like 5 guy, number 4 guy potentially at like a peak, but he's not like a major league talent pitcher. He doesn't have the upside that you're looking for like in Pivetta. He's not like, if you were to have Pivetta and you were to tell me, hey, Nick Pivetta is going to start, game 3 of a playoff series for you because, Corey Kluber's hurt or needs an extra day, I'd feel pretty good about Nick Pivetta. I'd feel like, okay, well, as long as he's on, we're going to be okay. Cutter Crawford, man, I would not feel good if he had to pitch in a postseason game, especially as like a starter or something. And I don't think that's really going to going to change much throughout the year. I just don't. I mean, maybe I could be wrong. Maybe he takes a step forward. I always root for these guys, but I just don't know. And last one, Whitlock. I know they're stretching him out to try to be a potential player in the rotation, but I think that is a huge mistake. Honestly, I don't think Whitlock should be anywhere near the rotation. He has shown nothing but dominance from the bullpen, and we need somebody like that in the bullpen. Our bullpen is kind of, it's not, I won't say it's a weakness. It's definitely not a weakness this year. I think that we're going to have stability in the bullpen is a good way of putting it, compared to last season where we just constantly were eating shit the whole season. It's like we're getting a bowl served to it. It's like we're just asking for more. It's like we're begging, pleading it. We can't stop just eating all of this shit. And this year's not gonna be like that. We're gonna be a little bit better than that. But having Whitlock in there would be great. Honestly, I would love to see Tanner Huck in there, but I don't think they're gonna have both of them in the bullpen this year. And you know what? If he performs as a starter, good, great. I think he's got better. He's got more pitches to work with than Whitlock does, but Whitlock has more elite stuff, which again better suited to be in the bullpen, get those 2-3 innings in a couple days a week. Love to see it. Every time Whitlock comes in, you just feel good. You know, you're like, Whitlock's coming in, this game's over, and that's kind of what we need. We have a pretty solid bullpen behind him in certain ways, and so I'm just ready to kind of figure that whole thing out. So, our bullpen though, let's go to the bullpen. So, can I get a hallelujah? We got a closer. Oh my God. I don't know. That's probably the biggest mistake that Heimblum, I feel like, has made, outside of just fucking up the Xander Bogaerts situation. But the Kenley Jansen era has begun. And we didn't have a closer last year. We were just like, Matt Barnes, here you go. You did pretty good for us. Here's an extension. Here's an extension. And he's like, oh, cool, I'm going to be shit. It's like, I got my extension. I'm going to suck. And that's pretty harsh for Matt Barnes. Matt Barnes, World Series champion, great player, did some awesome things for us. Matt Barnes just isn't a closer, man. If you tell me Matt Barnes is coming in the 7th inning, Matt Barnes is coming in the 8th inning, I feel great about that. I think you just put him in a position where he's just not going to be successful. And I think that he's going to do really good with the Marlins now. I'm glad we got something back for him. Richard Blyer is actually pretty decent. He's going to be able to come in the 6th, 7th inning. Feel really good about that. Definitely feel like it was needed for a change of pace for Matt Barnes. I think he kind of contributed to some of the clubhouse issues because, he was struggling a lot, and it just causes problems, man, when you're a high profile player in your role and you're just not performing. And so I think it's going to be a good change of pace for him, but Richard Blyer is going to help us a lot. John Schreiber shoved last year. I mean, he really, really did so well for us at the beginning of the season. Kind of came out of nowhere from the Tigers. Did struggle at the end of last year. I know he's going to be coming into the season kind of like as a setup guy. I wouldn't surprise me if he took another little step back this year, but I do think he's just going to be a solid piece for us basically the whole season. He might not be that elite guy that we saw for half the season last year, but he's going to give us some stuff. He's going to give us some opportunity to win games. And so you can't ask for much more than that from pieces in your bullpen. Chris Martin, getting him for setup, I like that move a lot. Chris Martin has been pretty solid in his big league career. Basically the last 4 seasons, he's had an ERA in the 3s or less. In that shortened season, he had a ERA that was 1.0 in 18 innings, which isn't a large sample size, but he's going to basically go out and give us a 3 to 4 ERA. Can strike out some guys, which is important in this role. I think from a setup guy, that's really important because, it can kind of shut down some innings. 74 strikeouts in 56 innings last year. kind of took a step forward from his career norm from that, but he had a great year, and he got a good deal, and I'm glad to have somebody in that role. I'm glad that we made moves to address the bullpen because honestly, a lot of the moves that we made for the lineup, and I talked about the lineup for a long time. Um, we didn't make many high profile moves, but the moves we made helped a lot. And up and down, we're going to be great. And it's kind of similar to the bullpen in a lot of ways. Like our biggest offseason move outside of Masataka Yoshida, you could argue is Kelly Jansen. Like it's honestly definitely Kelly Jansen. It's without question. Like we didn't have a fucking closer, so now we have a closer. And then you got Chris Martin, you got Blyer. Like you've picked up a number of guys that are going to help you win ball games this year in that role, and that's great. I mean, I know some of you guys listening here are just wondering why we still have Ryan Brazier on the team. I couldn't tell you honestly that the team, the analytics department there loves him. When Brazier first came up, guys, I love guys. I love guys that just come out of nowhere and just kind of shove. I just love that. And Brazier was one of those dudes, man. When he first came up, I was all about Ryan Brazier because he's somebody you don't expect to be able to succeed like that. And he just did. He helped win us a World Series. And he's just not been good. He's just not been good. He had a terrible year last year. Negative .8 WAR. I mean, he almost had a 6 ERA for the year. And he had like a 6.5, 7 ERA for a good portion of last year. He got 62 innings. Can't even believe he got that many innings last season. That just shows you how inept our bullpen was. But he did great in 2018. 2021 came back, was awesome. There's possibility there. He definitely got unlucky last year. Just like looking at his FIP, it was 3.61, but I don't know, man. I don't know where he's going to be sitting at. I think he could be a 4 ERA guy. I think he could be a 3 ERA guy. He could be a 5 ERA guy. It's going to be an interesting season. He's 35 years old. They're definitely hanging on to him still. So I wish him the best because I want my team to win the World Series. So. But if he's coming out the 6th inning, whatever, that's fine. There's at least potential there. He's been a setup guy before. He could do it again. We got guys like Zach Kelly. Zach Kelly is just one of those guys that's, he's a middle reliever, going to give us asset, going to give us some help. And then Josh Winkowski kind of was up and down last year. I know Winkowski kind of had a rough season last year, but he's still a prospect. He could do some things for us. He had some flashes of good. Was mostly ass though. Yeah. So I just pulled up his baseball reference page. I'm looking at it right now. I actually am shocked to see that he started 14 games for us last year. Maybe that just shows how tuned out I was towards the end of last season. But just across the board, not great. 70 innings, 85 hits, 44 strikeouts, really low. His whip was like 1.6. These are just not good numbers. So would prefer him not to see much major league action. But, injuries always happen, and I'm sure he's probably going to be in the majors up and down throughout the season. But this is probably it. Honestly, he might be one of those guys that just shows up this year and you just never hear from him again. Like really, really kind of just feels like that. The last couple guys in the bullpen that I'm really excited about. We went through who's going to be making opening day, but we've got a couple guys on this 40-man that I feel like this season, and this is another reason why I feel like that we're in a better position this year to just not suck ass. It's because we got Brian Mata, Chris Murphy, and Brandon Walter, all in the minors, all in AAA. And those three guys, they're essentially the future of the Red Sox staff. they're kind of across the board viewed as like, peak guys that could be like a number 3 to number 5 starter. And they're already essentially now, like they're going to be up this year. Probably every single one of them, barring injury, will be up at some point or another. And I think that they're looking ready. Like I know we talked about Brian Bayo for a good amount of time. They're the next tier down. I don't think any one of these guys is going to be better than Bayo. Brian Mata has shown some pretty good stuff, specifically like his actual mechanics and pitch selection's been really good. But all three of them could contribute at the major league roster today. I think they're going to, and I think that it's going to help us be successful this season. So yeah, and then we got guys like Caleb Ort, Joely Rodriguez. Those guys are probably going to be on the roster as well at some point or another. And they're going to, Ort's really bad, but I would rather see Walter, Murphy, or Mata than Ort. But depending on if some guy gets hurt early in the season, you're going to see Ort. So Joely Rodriguez, I think he's going to be out for a minute. But other than that, we got David Hamilton, too, on the bench. I'm looking at just the 40-man roster real quick, just to kind of tie up any loose ends before we wrap up here. But David Hamilton's fast as shit. Definitely, if we're making a run towards the end of the season, they expand the rosters a little bit. I think David Hamilton will be up. We talked a lot about stolen bases earlier. David Hamilton, dead ass, might be one of the fastest people in all of the minor leagues. Like, he's 99th percentile speed. And I think he's on the 40-man roster for a reason. I mean, he's there in case we need him. Rafaela, he's probably making his major league debut this summer. If you guys don't know who Kedin Rafaela is, Sedin, I don't know why I can't say his name right now. He is, without question, considered one of the best defensive players in the minor leagues right now. If you were to put him on an active roster and give him a full season's worth of at-bats right now, he would almost certainly win a Gold Glove, is what he's being compared to. And you know what? He struggled it a little bit last year. Became one of those top prospects. He's a top 100 prospect across the board. And he's making his major league debut this season, most likely. He's only 22 years old right now. He's going to be 23 this year. He's a pretty exciting prospect in the system. He's, in my opinion, a very exciting prospect, considering the fact that we don't have a lot of guys in the upper minors that are kind of ready. With like Cassis graduating, Bayo graduating, he's that next guy that hasn't made the big leagues that should make a pretty strong impact here. So, yeah, that's basically how I'm feeling. To summarize, the Red Sox are winning the World Series, but no. In reality, though, there's a range here. There's a big range that we could have, but at minimum, I think you're going to look at the end of the season, and we're not going to be sitting at some shitty restaurant feeling bad about it. We have guys that are going to make this season fun. The season's going to be fun. We're not going to be worried about necessarily making the playoffs, about winning the World Series. We're going to be having a good time this season, and we're going to see where it takes us. And honestly, I think that you look at some of these teams in the American League, Rodon's already out for the Yankees in the AL East. I think that there's some regression due in a lot of these teams. And, you got teams like Baltimore on the up and up, but I don't know what Toronto's going to give you. They've been so all over the place. I think Tampa Bay, this might be one of the years that they don't meet expectations. Their roster just feels a little incomplete to me. And then the Yankees, I don't know how the Yankees managed to win all these games, guys. The Yankees never, ever feel like the team to beat. They just don't. Their lineup just fucking is not good if you take out Aaron Judge. It just isn't. Aaron Judge was gone for a stretch last year. He's gone for large portions of the last few seasons. Every time he's out of the lineup, it's just like, wow, this team's beatable. across the board. This team's not very good. And I don't know, man. I mean, they've got a good bullpen. They've got a good rotation overall. They're still World Series contenders. They're still considered an elite team by a lot of people. But I think they just don't have it in them. And I think the Red Sox could. The Red Sox have beaten them the last couple times in the playoffs. If anybody remembers that. So, I guess it's a wrap. I guess that's it. I mean, this is a preseason preview episode. Again, 2 days before opening day. We're gonna see how this thing goes, guys. Appreciate everybody that's made it this far. I mean, this is kind of wild for me. And I'll try to get another episode out for you guys sometime next week, and we'll review how the season's going. We'll see what we're up to, and we'll see what we're gonna be doing. But thanks again for tuning in. Appreciate it very much. My name's Ryan, and this is Sox Content.